Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today I am doing something a bit different, and I am not having an outline in front of me for this video. Usually I have an outline with bullet points of things I want to talk about, but for this one, it's all coming right off the dome. So, should be interesting, and it's a topic I'm excited to talk about, and that would be the Eastern Conference semifinals. Obviously, I do have a rooting interest in this in the Milwaukee Bucks. Wrecking my Dante DiVincenzo jersey today. Got the hat on, got the hoodie because it's only about 55 degrees right now, so a little chilly. But yeah, let's get right into it. I'll start with the Bucks Heat series because I'd say this is probably the least interesting of the two to talk about, which says a lot because this series is going to be incredible as well. But um, I think it starts off with Giannis. How are the Heat going to defend him? I think Bam probably will be on him for the majority of the game. In the past, good defensive big men have been the people who have done the best job guarding Giannis, guys like Al Horford. So I think that the Heat will probably take a pretty similar approach to that and match up Bam on Giannis. That's what they did in the regular season and in the seeding game. So we'll see if that's what happens, but I'm pretty sure that that's what the Heat will do. If that's the case, and they don't start Myers Leonard, which is not something they did the entire series against the Pacers, and did not do against the Bucks back in March when these two teams matched up in the regular season. Um, Brook Lopez is going to have Jay Crowder on him for a lot of minutes, and that's something that the Bucks can take advantage of. Brook is good at hunting mismatches, and he's got a few good moves in the post. Um, they are slow as all heck, but they're effective. And if he is able to get that matchup frequently and attack it, I think it may force the Heat to make some adjustments because he's a good low post scorer because of the sheer girth of him, how big of a guy he is. So if that's something they'll watch for, the Lopez versus Jay Crowder matchup. I think that the Heat are going to give up a lot of 3-point attempts to the Bucks role players. Well, basically everyone besides Chris Middleton and George Hill, because those are really the only two Bucks players who shot the ball real well from three this season. Everyone else is kind of in the 30 to 35% range, which is something you can definitely live with each time down the court if you're the Heat. So they'll probably wall off the paint to Giannis, try to prevent Chris Middleton from getting good looks from three, try to prevent George Hill from getting good looks from three, and give up lots of shots to guys like Wesley Matthews, Dante DiVincenzo, Lopez, who else? Pretty much all the other guys that are in the rotation for the Bucks. Marvin Williams, there's Sonny Ilyasova, Pat Connaughton is another one. Those guys are going to get lots of open looks from three, and it could definitely be a series decider. I think it would help the Bucks a ton if those guys were hitting shots. It would definitely speed up the series and allow the Bucks to win in maybe 5 games. But those guys are not super reliable from three, so I'm not counting on it. I think that Giannis is going to have to figure out how we can still dominate despite the wall being there. Middleton is going to have a big series. He's really important to the Bucks' success as their second best player. So they need some good ISO scoring for him, but it's going to be really tough because he's going to have Jimmy Butler on him, and that's one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA. So who knows how much production we're even going to get from Middleton, which brings a lot more pressure to Eric Bledsoe to step up and be that number 2 guy. And he's going to have Dragic on him, Goran Dragic. So that's someone that he has to take advantage of because he's stronger than Dragic, he's quicker, and that's just a matchup that I really like as a Bucks fan, and I think Bledsoe can dominate. He struggled in the playoffs before, which could be a cause for concern. But as I've stated in the past, Kyle Lowry also struggled in the playoffs up until last season, and last season he broke out as one of the best players in the entire playoffs. So I'm looking for the same kind of thing from Bledsoe, not on the level of Kyle Lowry, because Kyle Lowry is, he's an all-star player, all NBA in some seasons, whereas Bledsoe is kind of just a borderline all-star, not quite as good as Kyle Lowry. So I don't expect him to jump up and become one of the best players in the entire playoffs the way Kyle did last season. But um, I do think that he has potential to be a 18 point per game, 6 to 7 assists per game kind of guy for the Bucks, and especially against Dragic. So maybe they make the adjustment and Kendrick Nunn starts getting minutes again because he's a better defender and can match up a bit better on Eric Bledsoe. But I don't really see them doing that because of the inconsistencies that Nunn showed during the seeding games. So I think that they're gonna kind of live and die with that Dragic matchup, and it'll be interesting to see if Bledsoe can take advantage of that. Uh, I've talked primarily about the Bucks end of the floor so far, so let's switch over to the Heat end of the floor, where the Heat are on offense. What are the Heat gonna do? They're gonna try to get open looks from three from their gunners. Duncan Robinson is the primary one of the best shooters in the NBA. Hero can knock down open shots. Dragic can knock down open shots. Kelly Olynyk is a good shooter. So it's going to be challenging for the Bucks to bring too much help onto the um, primary isolation scorer, which would be Jimmy Butler. Uh, I think that they will be willing to give up threes to Butler and also Bam Adebayo. This is a series where the Bucks drop coverage scheme in the pick and roll could play a great role because they're going to be allowing Bam to shoot whatever kind of jump shots he wants because he has not shown the confidence and consistency to knock down open jumpers this season. So I think that that's something the Bucks are willing to live with, giving up jumpers to Bam. If he starts knocking them down, obviously the adjustment needs to come, but I have not seen that yet from him to prevent me from being confident in allowing him to take those jumpers. Um, Lopez on defense has always played that drop coverage ever since Budenholzer came, and I think that it will be good in this series, especially because if Jimmy Butler is the ball handler in that pick and roll, and I view him as probably the primary ball handler, except for maybe Tyler Hero. When he's in the game off the bench, he gets a lot of the ball handling responsibility, and obviously Dragic does as well. But in the pick and roll, it's going to be a lot of Jimmy Butler and Bam, and that's a pick and roll that I think the Bucks can do a really good job of guarding. They're going to allow Jimmy to take that pull-up three. He has not shown that he can hit that in the past. He's been very hesitant to attempt three-point shots off the dribble, and really three-point shots in general. So uh, I do think that that is a good matchup for the Bucks in that way. However, the Bucks do give up a lot of threes, and the Duncan Robinson, Goran Dragic, Tyler Hero, Kelly Olynyk, those shooters make me afraid because they all are knockdown guys, and they're all going to be playing big minutes. So I'm sure that the Bucks will crowd Duncan Robinson and not allow him to get any good looks. But the other guys, I'm not so sure that they'll be as focused on preventing them from getting looks. Guys like Hero and Olynyk, and those guys have proven that they can shoot the ball at a high clip. I think they're both around 38% from the season. So that's something that the Bucks are probably going to give up. We haven't seen Bud shy away from giving up those threes in the past, so we'll see what happens there. But I'm definitely nervous about all of the shooting that the Heat have. Uh, that can be a swing point in this series, and if their shooters are knocking down shots, as you can see, I'm talking about it on both ends. The role players from both teams are very important in determining this series just because of how they shoot the ball. In terms of matchups, I think that Lopez will likely be on Bam. Giannis will probably guard Jay Crowder. So that's someone you can definitely help off of. Giannis on Jay Crowder. You can give up threes to Crowder. Middleton will be guarding Butler, another guy you can give up threes to, but he's just so dangerous attacking the basket. I'm not sure I want to give him any open driving lanes. Yeah, that's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. Another interesting niche of this series is Kyle Korver playable? Because he's the best shooter the Bucks have, other than George Hill probably. The best three-point shooter. Maybe Middleton's better too, but that's not what we're debating right now. If he can play and is passable on defense, he can change the series just because of his ability to knock down shots. He can prevent the Heat from bringing an extra help guy just because of the gravity he has on the perimeter as a knockdown shooter. He has that quick release. You can't give him too much space, and he can knock down those shots. But the problem with Korver is he's 38, 39 years old, and he cannot play very good defense. So is there a matchup the Bucks can find for him where he's passable on defense and they can keep him in the game for his shooting? I think some possible ones are Derek Jones Jr., Andre Iguodala, and Jay Crowder. So we'll see if Korver can keep up with those guys. If he can, that's a big boost for the Bucks because of his shooting. If he can't, definitely makes me a bit worried. I'm very excited for this series. I think it's going to be a good one. I think that the Heat are going to put up a big fight, but in the end, my prediction is Bucks in 6, as Brandon Jennings once said, which has gone down in Bucks lore as a huge deal when Brandon Jennings said that the Bucks would upset the LeBron James-led Miami Heat in 6 games. Yeah, so over to the other series, Celtics-Raptors. This is another very fun one. A very important part of this series is Kyle Lowry's status. I'm not really sure about that. I probably should have looked it up before starting to record this video, but I did not. If he's playing, it gives the Raptors a huge boost because if he's not playing, it hurts them a bit in terms of depth. In that situation, Van Vliet moves over to the point guard, and Norman Powell starts the game at the 2, most likely. That would be the change they would make. And that's not a huge drop-off because those guys are good players. Powell was spectacular in the Nets series. He had multiple games where he had 25-plus points, I believe. And he is very important to this team's success. But he's best off the bench for them because they play only really 7 guys. I suppose you could include Terrence Davis off the bench for them. Could be considered their 8th guy, but in a lot of games, Nick Nurse is only playing him 8 to 10 minutes. So if Powell is starting, he's stepping into that Norman Powell role off the bench. You're probably getting some minutes from Matt Thomas in that situation. Maybe Chris Boucher gets a few minutes. It will be interesting to see what happens if Kyle is not ready to go, but I anticipate that he will be. From what I've heard, it's not too serious, but that was from a couple days ago during the time where it was iffy. I did not do any research on his status, but if he can play, that's huge because it gives them just that boost in their 7-man rotation. Obviously, Kyle Lowry is a better player than Terrence Davis, so you would rather have him on the court for those big amount of minutes because Nick Nurse is going to play his guys 30-plus minutes from his top guys and not have a whole lot of bench depth. Whereas Gordon Hayward being out for the Celtics is disproportionately big compared to Lowry because the Celtics just have that lack of depth. If Hayward can't go, which he likely can't, Marcus Smart comes in the starting lineup, and that's not a drop-off at all. In fact, that might be an upgrade just because of the defense and effort that Smart brings to the floor. However, off the bench, you have to insert Grant Williams or Semi Ojeleye into the rotation, and I'm not really sure that that's something I trust. Neither of those guys have shown that they can do a whole lot on the offensive end of the floor. And on defense, they're great. They're, well, not great, but they're good. They're good defenders, and they're good players, but they're not ready for playoff basketball yet. They're both young guys. Ojale just needs to take that step forward on offense that he hasn't yet, and that lack of bench depth is something that's really going to hurt the Raptors in this series. Or the Celtics, excuse me. The Raptors have plenty of bench depth. It just depends on whether or not they use it. In terms of the Raptors' end of the floor on offense, I think that they will most likely have Tatum on Siakam, Tice on Gasol, obviously. Kemba. Where are they going to hide Kemba? OG Anunoby? Probably, I think. They'll then match up Smart on Lowry and Jaylen Brown on Fred VanVleet. Or do they put Kemba on Lowry? I think that it is very possible that Kemba's defensive flaws are exploited in this series to the max. Obviously, OG is not a great offensive player, but he's capable as a slasher. He has a lot of strong finishes at the rim. He's a good dunker. I'm not sure that Kemba is capable of guarding any of these 7 rotational players for the Raptors, and his defense is certainly going to get exploited. Obviously, he more than makes up for that on the offensive end, but Kyle Lowry is a pit bull. He's a great defender, and it's going to be hard for Kemba to do a whole lot on that offensive end of the floor. I definitely think that the rest of the matchups are very good for the Celtics on their defense. Tatum is a good defender. He can stick with Siakam and probably do a pretty good job on him. As we saw in the seeding game, obviously, I want to say that that game probably doesn't have much importance. Neither team wanted to show their full hand. But the Raptors didn't look great. And that definitely takes away some of my confidence in the Raptors. From what you can probably tell, I think the Raptors are going to win this series. I'll share my prediction later, but that makes me question whether or not they can manufacture enough offense to get past the Celtics team, because Marcus Smart is going to do a great job on whoever he's matched up on. Jaylen Brown is an overrated defender, but he's still really good. Tatum is also a bit overrated on the defensive end of the floor, but he's a really good defender as well. So I think that the Celtics can limit the Raptors and keep them low scoring, especially if the Raptors cannot get out in transition, which is where they thrive. They're the best transition team in the NBA. On the other end of the floor with the Celtics, I think Siakam probably guards Tatum, Anunoby guards Brown, VanVleet guards Smart, and Lowry guards Kemba. Those matchups are also very interesting, but I think Jason Tatum is going to have a really big series for the Celtics. He's going to average 30 to 35 points per game, and he's really going to step up and elevate his game. And that's what's going to keep the Celtics in this series, is their star play. Kemba is going to have a good big series on the offensive end of the floor as well. He's just such a good offensive player with that mid-range jumper. He can knock down threes off the pick and roll, pull-up threes. Big part of his game, the pull-up mid-range. He can get to the rim and finish despite being a little guy. Jaylen Brown has potential to have a big series. Obviously, OG Anunoby is a great defender, but Jaylen is also just a really good offensive player. He can shoot the ball. He can get to the rim and finish. The more I talk about it, the more I start to see why people are picking the Celtics in this series. But the real problem with me for them is that bench. They're going to have Ibaka in, the Raptors are, that is, playing big minutes. Probably bigger minutes than Gasol based off what we saw in the Nets series. When the games were close, it was Ibaka on the floor and not Gasol because of that extra spacing he brings them. However, Gasol is better on defense, which could be big because his ability to impact shots inside the paint is huge. He's one of the better rim protectors in the entire NBA. And if he can take away those inside shots from Tatum, Brown, Walker. That's huge for the Raptors, excuse me. But he just doesn't bring the same shooting, and he's not the same on offense as Ibaka, and that seems to be what Nick Nurse has been valuing more so than the defense recently in the playoffs. They can go to that big lineup, but that brings the question of, can Ibaka or Gasol guard Jason Tatum? I'm not so sure. Can they guard Jaylen Brown? Probably not. Can they guard Marcus Smart? That might be the matchup they hide one of them on if they decide to go big. So that's definitely interesting. Which big man Nick Nurse opts to play more, especially because Cantor is going to be playing a lot of minutes off the bench, and obviously he has his defensive struggles. So they're going to be able to exploit that matchup a lot, putting Cantor into screen and rolls. Last year, Terry Stotts had the issue of he wanted Cantor to be dropping back because he's at his best when he's close to the rim, because he isn't forced to defend in space as much. But can you do that against Lowry and Van Vliet, especially with the shooting series Van Vliet just had? I'd say probably not. So Cantor is going to struggle off the bench. Brad Wanamaker, he's fine. He can shoot the ball a bit, but I think they're going to live with him getting shots. They'd rather him shoot than any of the 3 all-star level players for the Celtics. So what this really comes down to is the top level talent for the Celtics. Can it beat the bench depth of the Raptors? The Celtics have 3 great players, whereas the Raptors probably have 2. I think Fred VanVleet is incredible, but I'm not putting him on that all-star level that you see with Walker, Brown, Tatum, Pascal Siakam, and Kyle Lowry. So the Celtics have the advantage there. However, the Raptors have 7 really good players, and they also have Matt Thomas and Terrence Davis. I always blank on his name for some reason, but they have so much depth, so that's a big advantage for them. On the defensive end of the floor, both teams are great, but I think that the Raptors just have a bit of an advantage because they're not forced to go to guys like Cantor off the bench and Brad Wanamaker off the bench, who are not very good defenders, especially in Cantor's case. In terms of offense, the Celtics probably have the advantage because they have their star players who can just get you buckets, and it's a playoff series, so it's going to slow down. And the Raptors don't have all of that great half-court stuff that the Celtics do. They want to get out in fast break, but they're not going to be able to do that because it's the playoffs, and in the playoffs the game slows down. So do the Raptors have that isolation one-on-one guy who can just get you buckets? That is what this series may hinge on, and I think they do. I think Pascal Siakam is ready. I think he may outperform Tatum in this series, but I don't think he needs to because of the depth, but they need him to be great, and I believe he will be great. And that leads me to my prediction of Raptors in 7. I actually went back and forth on myself before I started the video. I thought Raptors in 7, but as I talked about this series more and more, I started thinking, well, the Celtics are incredible as well. They could win this series. And it came down to a coin flip. It came down to, is Siakam ready? And I believe he is. So Raptors in 7 is my prediction. Bucks in 6. And we'll have a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals in this year's Eastern Conference Finals. This was a lot of fun for me to talk about. I hope you all enjoyed. Drop a like and subscribe. Leave a comment with your Eastern Conference Semifinals predictions. And that's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again very soon.